The Insider Exclusive analyzed 5 years of federal crash data. We added up the fatalities county by county, road by road during that entire period. And we found that between 3,500 and 5,000 people are killed in truck crashes on our nation's highways every year. Although that's the equivalent of a commercial airplane crash occurring every week, there is a general lack of awareness on the part of the motoring public about this problem. Estimates suggest that fatigue is a major factor in up to 30% of fatal crashes and 15% of serious injury crashes. Fatigue also contributes to approximately 25% of insurance losses in the heavy vehicle industry. Driver fatigue is particularly dangerous because one of the symptoms is a decreased ability to judge one's own level of tiredness. Research has shown that not sleeping for more than 17 hours has an effect on driving ability, the equivalent of a blood alcohol concentration of 0.05. Not sleeping for 24 hours has the same effect of having a blood alcohol concentration of 0.10. In the best of conditions, tractor-trailers are dangerous vehicles simply due to their size and weight. The average semi can carry more than 40,000 pounds of cargo, let alone the mass of the truck, fuel, and the trailer. The average passenger vehicle, on the other hand, weighs only 4,000 pounds, a deadly match in any collision. In this Insider Exclusive Network TV special, Justice in America, Agapito Lopez's story, we visit with Bob Genis, founder of the Sonin Genis law firm, to discuss how he successfully won a $15 million verdict for his client, Agapito Lopez, who was severely injured when an 18-wheeler ran a stop sign and collided with his vehicle. Bob has earned a reputation as an unyielding trial lawyer who repeatedly represents individuals and families against big companies and the Goliaths of the world, and he repeatedly wins. He has earned the highest respect from citizens and lawyers alike as one of the best trial lawyers in New York. He's built a substantial reputation by consistently winning cases other law firms have turned down. And his amazing courtroom skills and headline-grabbing success rate continue to provide his clients with the results they need and the results they deserve. This is the Insider Exclusive, live from New York. It is my great pleasure to introduce Bob Genis to the show. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Thank you, Steve.
Tell our audience a little bit about your firm. What type of law does your law firm practice?
Our firm practices Sonin and Genis. Our office is in the Bronx, but we've tried cases in 7 states. We do plaintiffs' personal injury medical malpractice. We represent the families of people that have been killed or seriously injured by the negligence of others. We've been doing this since 1988. I've been doing it since 1983, and we're considered a pretty good firm. We work real hard.
Now, in your spare time, I understand you're active within New York State Bar, right? You teach classes. Tell our audience a little bit about that.
Sure. I teach a lot, mainly with the New York State Trial Lawyers Institute, New York State Trial Lawyers Association, where I'm an emeritus director. I've been their director for over 21 years. I'm in charge of the New York State Trial Lawyers Institute program on evidence. It's called Evidence to Win. We do that all over New York State. I also co-chair Depositions to Win. I teach a lot of different classes for them and many other different bar associations throughout the state and the country. I've taught on a national level for AAJ, American Association for Justice. I've taught at the Masters in Atlanta with Don Keenan. I've taught all over the country.
Right, and lawyers really need to go to some of these seminars, if you will, in continuing education, because you don't learn this in law school, do you?
Absolutely. You don't learn any of these skills in law school about how to try a case, and that's what we like to teach, and the law of how to try a case.
Today, Bob, we're going to be talking about an 18-wheeler case that you handled, and I believe that your client was Agapito Lopez. What were the facts of the case?
Interesting, tough case. This was a 18-wheel tractor trailer on a major street in the Bronx, has a collision with my client is driving what's called a box truck, a 26-foot box truck. My client has the stop sign, and he's coming from the side street. So the defense had a no pay because they said their client had the right of way, he's on the main street, and my client had the stop sign. But that really wasn't the case was about, because what happened was my client was at the intersection first, and he looked and saw blocks away the tractor trailer was there. My guy worked in that neighborhood. This was right at his work site. He knew he had plenty of time, if the tractor trailer was following the speed limit, to get across. And when my client is about 3/4 of the way across, that's when the tractor trailer smashes him and T-bones him. Literally flips over his box truck, which showed how fast the tractor trailer was moving. So we said this happened because they were speeding and they failed to yield the right of way to my client because he was already almost all the way across the intersection.
And he had the right of way.
That's what we said, and they claimed, well, he had the stop sign.
You mentioned it was a tough case. What were some of the challenges in the case?
Well, one of the challenges is, to the average juror, well, you had the stop sign. But yes, that doesn't mean you have to stay there for 10 years. So I think once we showed the point of impact, the physical, the forensics, so to speak, the physical aspects proved our case. Where did the contact take place? What part of the roadway? What part of the box truck was hit by what part of the tractor trailer?
Oftentimes the defense lawyers know exactly what you're talking about, but they know they can delay this case. They know the longer it waits, maybe the lawyer and the client need the money, whatever, right? So that's the reason they deny this up front, isn't it?
It's always a factor to them because the insurance companies make money by not giving money. People think insurance companies give away money. They do not. Insurance companies like to keep their money. That's how they stay profitable. So yeah, they figured, what's their downside? They never offered us a penny, and we tried the case.
Yeah, there were some other challenges you had. I think your client had some pre-existing psychological issues, right?
This was a case where the claimed injury was to his left knee. He had what's called a torn meniscus treated with arthroscopic surgery. Prior to this ever happening, before this, he had a motorcycle accident where he had a metal rod put in that same leg going to the distal portion of the femur, meaning into the knee. So they said he had a prior injury to that leg, in fact, to that knee area. And about a year and a half after this, he had another motor vehicle crash where he had arthroscopic surgery and a torn meniscus to his right unrelated knee. He also had some psychological issues before this ever happened as well. So the defense was, your guy wasn't seriously hurt. New York has what's called a threshold injury law when you're injured in a motor vehicle. If you do not have an injury that the law defines as serious, even if the other vehicle is 100% wrong, even if you're hurt, if it's not what the law defines as serious injury, you get zero, no money at all.
Now, what did the jury award in this case? I think it was pretty substantial, $15 million.
Well, they awarded, the jury allowed my client to be compensated with $15 million for all of his pain and suffering, both past and future. This is a lifelong injury, and he was a young man in his 40s, and also for medical treatment, because he will require medical treatment over the rest of his life.
So I think you got another $7 million, correct?
Yes.
$22 million total.
Yes. There was also another plaintiff in the case who was also awarded actually much less than my client, but my client got $15 million, and the total verdict, and I had done summations to assist both clients, so the total was $22 million. Much of my trial was to assist both plaintiffs in terms of liability, negligence, fault, and damages, and I did so. And it was a $22 million verdict that I'm very proud of.
In cases like this, a lot of money, the insurance company is always the one that ends up paying, right? They're appealed. Why wasn't this appealed?
In this one, the company itself was no longer in business, and they only had $2 million in insurance. So after we won the case, they offered the $2 million. The company was no longer business. There were no assets. That's all there was to be had. So at that point, we accepted it.
Do you find out this information prior to taking on the case?
Well, in New York, they're not required to give you their insurance information up front. So you don't know, but you know it is a tractor trailer, so you know there has to be at least on the trailer $750,000. Usually there's $1 million on the tractor, so that there is some coverage. You don't know exactly how much up front, though.
These cases, these trucking cases, you have a lot of them all around the United States. What are some of the challenges that a lawyer has in proving cases like this? And you mentioned to me the minimum insurance is what, $750,000 per the trailer? What are some of the other problems?
Well, the problem is if it's a large trucking company, they are very sophisticated. They will have their people sanitizing the scene almost immediately after the crash happens.
So, Bob, you mentioned that sometimes a crash scene is sanitized. I've seen that happen with railroad cases, where, for example, BNSF or Union Pacific will come into a town. They'll cut down the trees that block the view on the tracks so, people now can see the train when they couldn't before. They will go to the local sheriff and give him something. I don't know what they give him, so now he sees things in a different light. I've even seen a case in Minneapolis where the train employees, and they were fined for this, $25 million. So the judge stood up, where the employees of BNSF or Union Pacific, one of the two, came out there and poured alcohol all over the accident scene where 4 teenagers were killed, saying that they were drunk. Okay, where black boxes disappeared, where trains were moved, saying, well, the show must go on. What happens in the city of New York where some of these crash scenes are sanitized? Who's doing it and how they're doing it?
Okay, usually with the big tractor trailer crashes, it's more on an interstate highway. And it's more not so much in New York City because of the traffic, they don't get the high-speed crashes, but it could be more upstate New York where you get the high speed, or it could be 3 in the morning on a regular city street and there's nobody there so they could fly and pretend it's a highway. But when you have the big trucking companies, they know immediately when this happens, and they will send their people out, and they can sometimes get there before the police do. And if there's an eyewitness that is bad for them, go home. We don't need you. If there's an eyewitness that's good for them, here you go, officer. Here's John Jones. Here's his phone number. Here's his address. Certain records, if you don't get them immediately, they're destroyed after 6 months from the trucking companies because they're not required to keep them for more than 6 months. As you say, the black box, malfunction, we can't find it, we didn't download it, or you're not entitled to it. They don't want to give their communications things. They change their logbooks. There's lots of ways that they can sanitize what happened so that you don't know that the driver's fatigued and has been going for 20 hours straight, so that you don't know who the real witnesses are. You don't know the speed of the vehicle. And unfortunately, they do it.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you always file a motion to preserve all the evidence. But often, in cases like this, but oftentimes that evidence is destroyed or lost or can't be found or whatever. How do you discover that the evidence was there if it's been destroyed?
It is proving a negative, but what we like to do is we send out immediately the letter, what we call the spoliation letter. We want you to preserve and produce and hold a litigation hold on your videos, on your black boxes, on just everything. And then you question the people. And that's where you have to get into the questioning technique of not just the driver about what's in the vehicle. If you're, let's say, in federal court, now New York actually changed some of our local laws too. In federal court, you have what's called the 30B6 witness. That's the corporate representative. New York has just recently changed our procedures as well to allow a similar type of deposition where you can question the corporate representative about their safety protocols, their procedures, what's with the vehicles, because a driver may not know about a black box or other information, but the safety director does. And that's where you have to do your homework, know what's there, know what the regulations say. We have a great library. We leave no stone unturned. I've got, if you want to talk about a trucking case, I've got my Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, trucking regulations. I've got my engineering books. I've got my medical books. If it's a police case, I have every version of the Police Patrol Guide and other books. We work hard. We research like you cannot believe. Whatever the topic is, we will master it. Whether it's medicine, whether it's engineering, it's trucking. I have toy trucks and toy buses that I keep to show for the jury the models of what they're like. We get books on everything conceivable because we go in prepared and knowledgeable.
You know, a lot of people come to you because of your success record. How do you end up
selecting the clients that you do?
I look for cases that, first of all, that I think a jury will be upset about. There's a wrong that needs to be righted. I think jurors come and they want to do justice. So find, is this a case for justice? Your series is Insider Justice. All right, we're looking, is this a call for justice? Is there a wrong that needs to be righted? And is there an injury that, because you don't want a jury to necessarily think, why are you wasting my time on a bruise? Because their time has a value too. So we look for significant cases where somebody needs to be held accountable, and those families need the compensation because of the severity of the injury they've suffered.
Congratulations on the case again, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.